Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Colorado Safe Routes to School webinar. We're waiting for people to join in. The chat box is open if you want to say a quick hello, let us know where you're from, what brings you here to our Colorado Community Engagement webinar today. I always love to see who's joining us and where you're joining us from. So I'll give you all a minute to get settled in, say a quick hello in the chat box, and then we will go ahead and get started. So let us know who you are and where you're coming from, please. So I see Cynthia, hello. Uh, Leah from Florida, nice to see Florida in our chat box. Hawaii, Kansas. It's always so cool to see how many places we cover in these webinars. So I'm always curious where people are coming from and what you all are working on. So go ahead and continue to introduce yourselves in the chat box. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Corey Johnson. I am our Program and Engagement Manager here at the Safe Routes Partnership. I'm coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, where it's finally starting to feel like fall a little bit. I hope it continues, but I don't want to get too comfortable because I know how, the October can be in the Maryland area. So, but I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Nice to see you all. I'll be your facilitator for today. A little bit about the work that we do here at the partnership. If you all don't know us already, we are a national organization. We work to advance safe walking, biking, and rolling to both to schools and also other everyday destinations, and really working to improve health and well-being of people of all ages, abilities, backgrounds, disabilities, and really focusing on creating healthy, thriving communities for everyone. So as you say hello in the chat box, I see a lot of people putting your name and location, your connection to Safe Routes. So what kind of Safe Routes work do you do or are you interested in? And then today is all about community engagement. And so I'd love to hear from you all about who are some of your primary community engagement partners, some of your favorite community engagement partners. We're going to be highlighting two really great communities from Colorado and two really great examples of community engagement. And so in the spirit of that theme, would love to hear who you all are partnering with, who you're working with, who are your main community partners and champions in your Safe Routes work. So I'll give you a moment to share that in the chat as well, and then we'll get started. So main community partners, who are you all working with? Who are you engaging? Schools, I assume, but anybody else you want to shout out, go ahead and put that in the chat box, please. All right, I see local bike shops, library. Yes, that's one of our partners for today. PD, fire department, schools and shelters, great. Senior center, city councils, a lot of library love, which for those of you who've been on a webinar with me over the past few years know how I feel about libraries. So it's great to see that some of you all are already partnering with your local libraries as a part of your work. So continue to keep that rolling in the chat box, and I'll go ahead and kick us off so we have time for our great presentations for today. A few housekeeping reminders before we get into the heart of our presentation. So this webinar is being recorded. We will share it out with a link in a link afterwards, along with all the presentation slides. So if you missed something, have to jump off early, or want to share with your network, look out for our follow-up email. The resources that we'll be talking about will be shared both in the chat box and also in the slide deck. And if there's something else that you might have missed, just let us know. And we can make sure we get you your the resources that you need. We'll post this webinar and the slides on our website. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have questions, there's a little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can drop questions in there. And then general chatter, ideas, shout outs, reactions to things that you're hearing today, all of that can go in the chat box. So keeping the questions and Q&A will help me stay organized when I do Q&A at the end. And then general hellos and chat can stay in the chat box. And a few other Safe Routes reminders as we get started today. So we at the Safe Routes Partnership, we love to work with you all, be a part of your team, and we're here to help you reach your Safe Routes goals. So if you all have any needs as far as Safe Routes projects, things that you're working on, we are happy to come and help support the work that you all are doing. We have a workshops and trainings catalog that is linked in the slide deck. I'll also make sure that you get the link for that. But if you're looking for workshops, trainings, presentations, technical assistance, virtual or in person, we are your people. So feel free to reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you, whether it's related to safe routes to school, transportation planning, policy, programming, engagement, state support, state network support, funding, or just wanting to design something of your own. Please do let us know. And then lastly, we are hosting our third virtual Safe Routes to School Summit at the end of this month. It runs from October 28th through the 30th on Zoom events, so a very similar platform to this. We'll have a great lineup of sessions, everything ranging from safe routes in rural communities to how communities are working with to keep kids safe on e-bikes, to developing school partnerships, youth engagement. We'll have another library session. So if you have not yet registered for our Safe Routes to School Summit, please make sure that you do that as well, and we'll share the registration link in the chat box too. All right, so those are my announcements. I'm ready to start talking about community engagement, which is why we are all here. So just a very quick overview. I don't know if all of you remember back in, I think it was 2021, we worked with CDOT and Colorado Department of Transportation and Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment, CDPHE, to create a Colorado community engagement guide. And this was really kind of born out of this idea of trying to strengthen our community engagement practice and trying to build healthy and authentic and meaningful relationships with the community members who we work with. And so this is a guide that we put together that outlines a community engagement framework and really highlights some best practices around community engagement. So it's broken down into a few different sections, and each section has guiding questions to kind of help you all work through your engagement process, both as you're planning engagement experiences and also implementing engagement experiences. It features some great programs in Colorado, and thankfully we have two other great programs to feature today that are community engagement related, and links to some really great tools, resources, worksheets, and there's also a heavy emphasis on equitable community engagement. So how are we making sure that we are really reaching out to and connecting to the communities that need us the most, or the communities that are often underrepresented when it comes to the work that we do? And so a bit about the community engagement framework and how we've kind of laid out this engagement process is there are a few different steps. The first one being to really reflect on your role as a community partner, especially if you're coming into a community to offer a program, implement a program, give feedback, thinking about what your presence is in that space and how your project will really impact community members. So that's part one. And then research the community where you're working. I know that I've worked in a lot of communities where I'm not from that community, so I really try to do my part to make sure that I understand the community that I'm working with, both the historical context and also what the community is like now. Who lives there? Where are people traveling? What do people care about? So that research is a really important part of the community engagement framework. Next is partnering with other organizations to build those community relationships. So we know that there's a lot of great work that's already happening in communities. And so who can we partner with? So these people who you've been putting in the chat box, whether it's your library or senior centers or town councils, who can we connect with to strengthen our Safe Routes work? And then from that, being able to plan really thoughtful and culturally responsive community engagement experiences, so whether that's a design charrette or a listening session or a demonstration project, making sure that it's planned really thoughtfully and with the community in mind. And of course, implementing whatever project or engagement experience it is that you're planning. And then lastly, working towards sustaining your engagement beyond a single project. So, knowing that a lot of communities are used to seeing people just come in and out, and it's really nice to think about how you can keep those partnerships going beyond a single project or initiative. So really planning for the long haul. So that's a little bit about our community engagement guide. And as I mentioned, we'll make sure that we share that link out with you all in the chat box and also following this session. But for today, we're going to talk about community engagement in two communities in Colorado. So this is our tale of two communities, one being Denver, Colorado, and one being Basalt, Colorado. And so we really like the idea of featuring, a large urban area and then a small town, and talking about what community engagement has looked like in these two spaces. And so our first example is going to come from Denver Public Library. And I'll preface this by saying that this presentation is really about how the library has been using some mapping tools to inform their library program. So once our speaker wraps up, I'll share a bit about how we can take learnings from Denver Public Library and apply them to safe routes to school. But I just want to, share before we kick off that presentation that it's really about using this great example from the library and learning from that, and then thinking about how we can translate that into safe routes to school. So just a little bit about library partners, why they're so awesome. Libraries are great program partners. I partnered with libraries before. They're always so awesome, friendly, helpful, and want to be engaged in safe routes work. Library staff have really diverse skill sets. So you'll hear from Eileen in a little bit, and she's a data expert, and she was talking about how there might be some other data experts in your library system who can help you if data might not be your thing. It's not my thing, so I know that I would definitely need some additional support. And library staff also know their communities really well. The library kind of, they see everybody. So if there's a certain population that you're having trouble engaging, or if you want to broaden your outreach and kind of broaden your scope, then a library is a great place to start doing that. So before we kick off with our first presentation, I have a quick let's see if I can get my polls going here. A quick poll to see if you have used GIS maps for your Safe Routes projects. If you have, feel free to explain a little bit in the chat. And then also, if you partner with your local library, we'll love to hear what that has looked like in the chat box, if anybody wants to share a few examples of either GIS work or library partnerships in the chat. So I haven't done a whole lot of work with GIS. I have partnered with libraries to do outreach tabling. I did a story walk project last year with DC Public Library. I've just used the library to share general information about safe routes to school and Vision Zero. So libraries have been great friends to me. So take a few more moments to drop your thoughts in the chat. Yes, safe routes to libraries. That's a thing. We will share the safe routes to libraries link in the chat box. I see a story walk. Love that. A few GIS examples, poster contests, GIS maps to engage parents about routes to school and other destinations, bike maintenance. I've done bike repair workshops at libraries. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to wrap up this poll and share the results here. So some experience with working with GIS and then some experience working and partnering with libraries. So my hope is that by the end of today's session, you'll have some new ideas about incorporating GIS into your engagement work and then also exploring some ways you can partner with your local library. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speaker for today. We have Eileen Ayala from the Denver Public Library. Eileen really works the intersection of strategic operations and data analytics. So she would be the data expert that I would be going to, asking her to help me because that's not my area of expertise. And her work is really focused on answering key questions around what does equitable distribution services look like? What tools can we co-create to show distribution of services? How can we teach staff to use these tools in their daily work? And how can we measure if the tool is working or identify when to change course? So I'm going to hand things over to Eileen to talk a little bit about what's happening in Denver. Eileen, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you joining us.
I'm excited to be here. I am going to attempt to share my screen. We did practice this, but you never know. Okay. Can you all see that?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. So this is my presentation for you all today. I titled it Mapping It Out because that felt cute and relatable. So we're going to be talking about how at the Denver Public Library we're using maps to inform what we do. And click. Okay. So about me, I've been making maps for a few years in a lot of different tools, primarily RStudio and some BI tools like Tableau and Power BI. And then now I do a lot in ArcGIS. I got my start in maps when I was in undergrad. I minored in stats, and it really piqued my curiosity in how a geospatial consideration can impact the analytics that we run and impact our outcomes. Once I got started, it was really easy to feel excited beyond just being interesting and pretty to look at maps. Maps feel human. They're a way to demonstrate how we can interact with one another, even as total strangers, seeing people using the same services or going to the same places. It's just something that I find really fun and beautiful. And I grew up in California, but have lived in Colorado for almost 6 years. I rescued a dog, as most people in Colorado do. He is a pug beagle mix that loves to explore hiking trails with me. Feel free to tell me about your dogs. I love talking about dogs, and I do have a couple of photos of said dog. He's very cute, have to share. That's him with some cows that we live near. So today I'm here to share specifically about one project that our team worked on and has sort of been working on for a little over a year, maybe 2 at this point. The overall premise is that each year the Denver Public Library engages in a service planning process to identify which programs or targeted services should be offered at which frequency at all of our locations. So our library, the Denver Public Library System, offers several targeted services, including digital inclusion, youth services, adult services, older adult services, mobile services, as well as a breadth of cultural inclusivity services designed with Denver's population in mind. So this specific project began at the request of the youth services manager, who had a few key questions that they wanted to solve for in their portion of the annual service planning process. So they were curious about how we can compile the breadth of available data on Denver youth and the library's data in one space. They wanted to understand how they could share decision-making and share their thought process with our branch staff. And they wanted to find some way to reliably maintain their data rather than looking at disparate sources or websites or other publications every year when this happens. They wanted it to be streamlined in one easy to use place. So I am going to attempt to click through and walk you all through it, and I hope that the screen follows me, but please let me know if it doesn't, Corey.
Eileen, are we supposed to see your presentation now?
You are supposed to see, you were supposed to see the presentation.
Okay, are you sharing your screen now?
I thought so.
Okay, 1 second.
Right now I'm trying to show them.
Okay. All right, you're good.
Okay, everyone can see the map?
Yep.
Great. So one of our key drivers to visualizing all of this data as a map was to ensure that branch level information could be included and compared really easily. We wanted anybody across our organization to have the same view of our library system and be able to draw the same conclusions rather than relying on either what branch staff are seeing and recording at the branch level or what at the administrative level we have access to, like neighborhood and city level metrics. So one benefit of our branch design is that we have designated service areas which segment the city into 27 pieces, each aligning with a branch. Those service areas are decided based on typical roadways, loosely based on branch size, walkability, factors like that. By using these service areas and by using a geospatial tool, we're able to analyze any data set that we're curious about over these service areas rather than trying to guesstimate based on neighborhood or census tracts or other information. So right now in this snippet of the map, we're looking at the percentage of the population in each of our library service area that is below the age of 18. And we can pretty easily see some trends here. And so these light green areas in the middle are areas that have lower percentage of youth under the age of 18. And as it gets darker, they have a greater percentage of their population that is that falls under that under 18 category. So it's pretty easy for folks at a branch or at our administrative level to look at this map and say that maybe these branches here that have less youth should have less programming or less youth targeted programming than these branches that are the darker green color. There's a lot of other layers that exist in this map. And you can see there's quite a bit here. These were all identified in conjunction with our youth services team, not just the manager, but all of the staff that work on their team were able to submit either key data points that they're using annually in their decision-making or questions that they have, curiosities that they have, data that they weren't sure how to get. And I worked through with them to find those data sources and reach out to partners in the city to identify that information to have it included here. All of these layers.
Eileen, sorry, can I pause you for a minute? For some reason, we're seeing your screen and the map, so we're like the map is showing really small. Can you go off camera and see if the screen will increase? It's not a you issue, it's a me issue.
Let me find. You want me to turn my camera off?
Yeah, just turn your camera off. Okay, nope, that didn't fix it. Okay, give me 1 second, everyone. Sorry. Yes, okay. We're good.
I think that was a me issue. I'm sorry.
Okay, nope, it's fixed. We're good.
Okay. Gonna turn my camera. Does it still work?
Yes, perfect, perfect.
My bad. I changed the settings on that earlier and
That's
didn't
okay.
ask. So this map has a lot of layers that we worked with our youth services team to add and key questions that we were trying to answer. So it includes information like bus stops, schools by grade and by type, after school programs, rec centers, all of that information, which allows us to further refine the decisions that we're making internally. So we're able to check if our after school programs that we're trying to have at this branch in the bottom left, BVL, that stands for our Bear Valley Library. If there is an after school program happening on Tuesday at 3 p.m., then maybe we don't want to host our own program Tuesday at 3 p.m. And we're also able to check if we're trying to target or begin new programs for people who ride buses or people who walk to school or things like that. If there are no walkable streets nearby, or if there's no bus stops, all of that information is in these maps and viewable by all of our staff and by the team. So that is my little walkthrough of the map. I'm going to try to go back to my slides now. I hope that you can see.
We can see, they look good.
Perfect. So some of the evolution of the project that I wanted to discuss is that these are very much still a work in progress since we started them almost 2 years ago, I believe. We're still working on adding more data points, more demographics categories, anything that we can get our hands on. And one of the primary focuses right now is to expand this into not just a layered map, but into a GIS dashboard so that we can have our other targeted service departments have access to their information in the same type of format. That will allow us to have more transparent decision making and more clarity on what decisions are being made where. We're actively using the information here and more to report to our external partners, as well as easily translating this into our annual goals for the mayor's office. We were really trying to design something from the get-go that was easy to use, and that has allowed us to apply the same visualization to other reporting rather than creating multiple tools of similar info. And we are also trying to work with other city partners. We've worked with the Office of Children's Affairs here in Denver, as well as Denver Public Schools, teams that don't have a GIS analyst or don't have this knowledge in-house, but are trying to make decisions about their own programming in alignment with one another. So we're all in sync across the city. I'm not sure how much time I have to walk us through this next one, but I also wanted to highlight this community assets project that I've been working on with our community engagement manager. And I'm going to click through this one as well. So we've been really trying to answer the question of like who are we collaborating with and what are we doing with them in our local neighborhoods. Our branches are already encouraged and frequently are maintaining relationships with other orgs in their community, but consistently tracking their contacts or what they're working on with them has been really difficult and manual. As individuals leave the organization, a lot of that information gets lost in the process. So we're trying to figure out a way to allow branch staff to have the autonomy to submit and track their own relationships in a way that was easy to use. And we also wanted to highlight gaps that might exist in either organization type or location. So we built this geospatial Denver hub site where our branch staff are able to come to this website and see all of the assets that they have. They can also filter if relationships are active right now versus inactive, or organizations that they don't have a relationship with in their local neighborhood. This allows them to go to those inactive sites, go to those sites that we don't have any relationship with, and build those connections. And we've linked in this website, their toolkit for tools that they can use to do that and to build those relationships. They're also able to see who we as an organization are already partnering with. So Denver Public Schools is a great example of somebody that we have a strategic organizational relationship with, and our branches might have relationships separate from that or individually with a classroom or a school down the street. So this way we're able to see both and all of that information in the same place. And our branch staff can scroll right down and submit these changes, adds, modifications directly in this website. So this form down here will auto-populate the map right next to it. So they can just hit submit, say that they've made a new contact or what they're working on, and they can see it right there easily. I don't think that I am going to have time to walk us through this time traveler's map of Denver, but I wanted to really briefly mention that this has been worked on by our special collections and digital archives team. It allows you to explore some of our historic map collections side by side with modern maps of Denver. I think it's really fun to see and to compare how things have changed over time. And it's also a really unique opportunity to explore some of our historic maps that have been digitized. So I would highly recommend you can type in Time Traveler's Map of Denver, and I'll also be sure to include that link to Corey to send you all after. The very last thing that I have for you all is a general plug to visit and explore your local public library. Uh, we offer so much beyond our physical and digital materials, although we have so many good books as well. A few examples of resources include databases that can be relevant to your work or just in general to your interests. So these are some examples of things that the Denver Public Library offers. We have tutor.com, which is homework help for students. We have Data Axle, which provides a lot of business and residential directories. We have Simply Analytics, and it allows for pulling data from so many different sources. And I actually use both of those in the maps that I've shown you today. We also have ancestry and genealogy databases. We have access to records and newspapers, music and TV and movies. And my personal favorite is the New York Times. I use the New York Times games every single day. I'm a big Wordle person. We also have our Library of Things, and these are resources that a lot of libraries have. So the Library of Things is access to diverse resources like sewing machines and hotspots and power checks, but my personal favorite is the cultural passes. A lot of libraries have partnerships with local cultural institutions like museums and zoos, state parks, so you can visit all of those things for free. It is wonderful, highly recommend. And the last thing to highlight is makerspaces. Many libraries have makerspaces. They're very cool. You don't have to buy a 3D printer or a wood burner. A lot of those resources exist in your local public library. Whew, I was talking so fast there. The last thing that I want to say before I turn it over to Corey is that so many of these resources are available to folks beyond your own residential area. Many libraries across the US and definitely in your states offer library cards and access to these resources, or some of them, even if you don't live there. Would highly recommend. I have many library cards, and they're just a joy. So I'm gonna stop rambling now and turn it over to Corey.
Eileen, thank you so much, both for sharing your mapping work and then also really uplifting what libraries can do, in our own communities. Like you mentioned, libraries have so many resources, and a level of expertise on so many different things. So for our Safe Routes people, as you're thinking about what your projects look like, and incorporating library work into Safe Routes to School, really consider some of the ideas that Eileen suggested, both around mapping, but also around just going to a library and seeing how they can help support the work that you do. So before I turn it over back to Catherine, I have a few just quick takeaways from Eileen's presentation, then we'll hand it over to Catherine to talk about the great work happening at Basalt. So first key takeaway, use maps to inform your Safe Routes programming, whether you want to pilot safe walking and biking routes, rolling routes, getting to know new community destinations, understanding local history, like that historical map that Eileen shared, exploring health and demographic data, identifying gaps in engagement and program participation, and even thinking about how to prioritize schools for Safe Routes projects. And again, we know maps can be used for all kinds of things: walk audits, finding new program partners, gathering data, organizing a cultural walk, recommending safe routes, or identifying those infrastructure gaps. And of course, if you're not a mapping expert, of course, there's a library you can turn to, trail experts, historical societies, colleges and universities, and even some local agency staff could help provide some of that support if you're looking to do something similar to what Eileen talked about today. And of course, she did a great pitch for partnering with the library, so I won't go too far into that. So thank you so much, Eileen. Appreciate your presentation. Looking forward to Q&A. And now I will queue up Catherine from Town of Basalt. And so we're going to do another very quick poll here. And would love to hear from you all. A little preview for Catherine's presentation, for me talking about some demonstration projects. But would love to hear from you all about if you've organize a demonstration project. And also, if you want to organize a demonstration project, but there might be something getting in your way. And Catherine's presentation really focused on how she's been able to engage her community, which is a small town in Safe Routes work. So to really show that safe routes in small towns are possible. It's great to build local capacity through community partnerships. There are lots of opportunities to be creative. So if you're in a smaller community and you're figuring out, how do I get some safe routes work going? How can I do a demonstration project? How can that lead to infrastructure improvements? Catherine is going to talk through a really great success story from Basalt. So just another few seconds here in the chat box if you want to share a little bit about how you've been able to work on a demonstration project. If you've had any demonstration project success, feel free to drop that in the chat box. And then I will turn things over to Catherine here. And Catherine is the town engineer. She's been working on some really great Safe Routes project in Basalt that she's going to tell you all about. So Catherine, before I hand it over, just a quick share of our poll here. So some people have organized safe routes to school demonstration projects, but most have not in our audience. And then as far as what are some of the barriers, looks like a mix, everything from not being sure how to get started to limited funding, limited capacity, trying to get some community support. And so my hope is after we, hear from Catherine and I can share some other takeaways that you have some ideas for, how to get some demonstration projects going in your community. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Catherine.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes, you're looking good.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Christoff. I'm the town engineer for Basalt, Colorado, and I'm going to share with you kind of how Basalt has tapped into some of our local assets to inform our project's design. Basalt's Confluence Park Safe Routes to School project is intended to improve safety for pedestrian, bicyclists, and vehicles in a section of pretty busy road that's next to the Basalt Elementary and Middle Schools. And it connects the schools to our state highway system, which has a bus stop and people frequent. Two Rivers Road, where the project is located, is a primary artery bringing people also to our downtown Basalt. Basalt is in the heart of the Roaring Fork River, or Roaring Fork Valley, and the Roaring Fork River flows through our valley. Basalt is relatively small. We have a population of about 4,000 residents that are primarily young families and retirees. Historic Basalt is a center of commerce that includes schools, major bus stops and gas stations, town hall, and other businesses, parks, and amenities. The confluence of the Roaring Fork River and the Frying Pan River is in downtown Basalt. And those rivers boast gold medal fly fishing waters and access to world-class recreation. Basalt has its roots as a railroad and mining town. Um, and in the last few years, historic downtown Basalt has undergone a major reinvention with a complete upgrade to the downtown streetscape. Basalt was originally created as a railroad and mining town, but in the mid 1900s, the historic downtown transitioned to better accommodate vehicles. That was a condition that remained until recently when the historic downtown core was reinvented to prioritize the pedestrian experience and multimodal transportation. That project was designed to discourage the personal vehicle and encourage walking, bicycling, and the slower pace of Basalt. Safety features like raised crosswalks and wider sidewalks are more inviting to all residents in that area, and visitors are, and now that area is completely ADA accessible. Because those upgrades were made only in the central area of downtown, there were some lingering areas just adjacent to those improvements that didn't offer the same safety features and amenities. And one of those areas adjacent to the historic core that was in need of improvement was the area of Basalt Safe Routes to School project. that Safe Routes to School project will better provide access for pedestrians and bicycles to the schools, into downtown, and to the bus stop and park and rides on 82 that I had mentioned earlier. That intersection that the project includes is incredibly busy due to the presence of a 7-Eleven that has gas pumps and a convenience store. And the interaction between children walking and biking to school and cars really wasn't optimal. In addition, there were few school zone signs, limited ADA access, and an inconsistent bike path in that area. The town of Basalt is committed to engaging and innovating alongside with our community. Public input is essential to all of our projects, and the buy-in is pretty imperative for the success of our projects. So the town, had a unique opportunity in January of last year when a local design and planning firm design workshop dedicated a day of service to exploring ideas for improving the pedestrian and bicycle connections to the Basalt schools. The day provided a learning opportunity for the Basalt Girl Scout troop. About a dozen girls spent the day brainstorming um, how they could help the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. And you can see they had some colorful solutions that included some interactive features. The town of Basalt will be presenting these girls with a badge for their efforts in the next month. So, working with that local firm and the Girl Scout troop was a creative way to involve the community and really have them understand the problem before designing the potential solutions. So as you can see, the colorful designs that the Girl Scouts created in the last slide are reflected in the town's temporary installation. The town implemented temporary changes to try out various concepts and to address the problem immediately without investing in really expensive and permanent infrastructure. The changes were instantly felt with cars moving slower in this area due to the color change of the crosswalks, the temporary bulb outs that you can see. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but we placed some bollards to simulate how bulb outs might occur in the future with bollards. And we have a public safety officer that is positioned out here during school traffic hours. So they were able to observe some of those improvements. So the changes also allowed town staff to see how the traffic and the pedestrians and the general public would interact with the new design and where permanent changes might be effective. So this past summer, the town was honored to receive the Safe Routes to School grant from the Colorado Department of Transportation. We believe that the collaboration with Design Workshop and the Girl Scouts helped show community buy-in. In addition, working in partnership with the school district helped create a larger team of stakeholders and community commitments to this positive change. The project also adhered to district policies that were in place around wellness and encouraging students to walk and ride their bikes to school. So when doing a project such as this one, it's helpful to take a look at current programs that the town or its partners are already doing. It helps with applying for grants, but also shows that the community is supporting similar efforts. The town has sponsored a Bike to Work Day for several years, and the Basalt Education Foundation promoted a walk, bike, and roll to school day in 2024. The town also partnered with the state and school district to survey parents about the ways kids are getting to school currently so that we can better address more opportunities in the future. So starting to lean into some of the takeaways that we've learned thus far, with small town, these big projects, you just have to realize that patience is, I guess, part of the job. Our timeline has been steady but slow. We're looking at a year and a half between our safe routes to school grant application, and when we expect an ad date for soliciting bids for construction. Along the way, the town worked on keeping our elected officials and neighbors informed, making those temporary changes, helped with community buy-in, and then continuing our activities like Bike to Work Day and consistently advancing the design itself. And finally, I just wanted to address some of our takeaways. One, we want to find areas where project already fits the stated needs of the community, particularly in planning documents like master plans or climate action plans, or solves a problem that's already recognized within the community. In our case, this project is directly aligned with the town's strategic work plan. Also look at current programming like the Bike to Work Day, or we have a town goal of becoming a bike-friendly community. Those initiatives support the overall goals of the project to help connect the dots that at first might not be quite as obvious. And then find creative ways to start a project with limited funds and in temporary ways. Like we said before, all of our funding was in place, and even before we had a full design, we tested those temporary solutions that were relatively inexpensive and effective. And this really allowed for kind of further engagement with the community. And then finally, like we said, community engagement is the key to success of any public project. The town was really lucky to engage design workshop in the Girl Scouts. But that temporary design really helps. So maybe think about what other citizen groups or nonprofits in your community might help support your effort. And even since I put this presentation together, we've had actually an Eagle Scout reach out to the town about building some stairs that are right off the project area that he'll be able to do somewhat independent of the project. But it's been a great partnership with those kids to kind of help see the full scope of the project come to be. So that was a short presentation, but just to say, even small towns can make strides and form partnerships to make sure your project's successful. So.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine, for joining us and for showing an example of, yes, what's possible in a small town and a way to involve a lot of different community partners in a project, and also kind of uplifting that idea of what a demonstration project can really do, both from the community engagement standpoint of, gathering that feedback, and then also using those takeaways to, get some funding for permanent infrastructure. So that's a great example and a good pitch for demonstration projects here. So similar to what I did with Eileen's presentation, I'll do a few key takeaways from Catherine, and then we'll do have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So a few key takeaways we can take with us from Basalt. First, it's just start early. So if you're looking to engage community members in an infrastructure project, a demonstration project, gather that feedback, brainstorm ideas with community members, whether that's Scouts or Rotary Club or Town Council or a senior group or a group of high school students. Make sure that you're engaging lots of different partners. Demonstration projects, we just love the idea of trying before you buy. So let's test it out, see how it works, and then decide if we want to actually, pursue permanent infrastructure funding. And of course, using what you've learned from a demonstration project to apply for funding. And then in the meantime, knowing that infrastructure projects can also take a long time, think about opportunities to find some quick wins. So things you can implement on a relatively low budget and with a shorter timeline than maybe a big infrastructure project. And also linking to other safe routes initiatives, like Catherine mentioned, if you have a walk and roll to school day or a planning document that already outlines some recommendations from the community, tying your project to what's already in the works. Of course, I just mentioned demonstration projects are really powerful engagement tools for building support, gathering feedback, bringing people together under a common goal and really building a foundation for a strong long-term project. And then lastly, using your network. So, who's around? Is it the Girl Scout troop? Is it a Rotary Club? Is it the library? Is it an Eagle Scout, or are there elected officials, parents, caregiver groups? Catherine, I loved how you mentioned how you worked with an organization that had a day of service. So if you all are thinking about, how to get some support from a local, company or organization, a lot of them have, corporate volunteer days. I've done a lot of those, gotten support for a lot of the projects that I've worked on from some of those corporate volunteer programs or days of service. So explore that idea. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, library staff, friends foundations, other friends groups that might be available in your area. If you're looking for additional resources on pop-up projects, we do have a few resources here at the partnership. One is, again, called Try Before You Buy, how pop-up projects lead to big-time investments, really focusing on using pop-up projects to get infrastructure funding. And then we have another fact sheet about tactical urbanism for safe routes to school. So again, testing out some projects and using that to inform future safe routes programming. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and we do have a bit of time for Q&A. I saw some questions in the Q&A box. Eileen, if you want to jump back on and join us too, we can hopefully get some of these questions answered. So first question is from Eileen. We have a question from Sarah asking, where did the bus stop data come from in your map? They're working on some transportation maps in Maine and would love to know how you got that information.
Yeah, I got that layer from our city and county's open data hub. A lot of local governments and state governments have their own data hubs that you're able to download and access that information. ArcGIS also has the Living Atlas, where anybody can submit their information to be included as a layer, which is really helpful. And another place that you can look is those databases that I was referencing earlier at your local public library. If it's a little hard to say, our library has literally hundreds of databases, but that information can also exist via those sources. So I'm not sure where Maine would have that, but there's a couple of places that you can look.
Thanks, Eileen. A question for Catherine. Did the town have a community task force that assisted with planning and design efforts? And what was the most effective means for the town to keep the community aware of progress?
We didn't have a task force that was specifically for the project, but we do have a number of citizen committees, one of which is called our Parks, Open Space and Trails Committee. And so they have appointed, it's an appointed group of folks that we check in with regularly and make sure that the design is progressing kind of as they envision and with their input. And then we explain the input we've gathered from neighbors and the Girl Scouts and other groups along the way. So we took advantage of the citizen groups. I mean, especially being a really small town. I always say Basalt only employs 35 people, including the whole police force. So we try to take advantage of the systems that are already in place. So we're not reinventing the outreach for every project that we're trying to accomplish.
Great. Thanks, Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also have a lot of questions about, the community task force and how that works and how you start one and what that role can look like. So I appreciate you explaining that. Eileen, one more question for you. Can you speak to considerations on balancing more data and mapping resources with the concern of including too much information? So, how much is too much, and how do you, kind of like prioritize what you're actually showing in your maps?
Yeah, that one is definitely a tough one. I would say it's definitely a balancing act. The approach that I take in my work is to ensure that I'm co-creating with the people. I'm asking them, what questions are you asking yourself? I don't want to know every single data point that you're thinking of or every single like hope and dream, but like, what are the questions that you're using when you're saying branch 1 should have more team programming than branch 2? How are you making that decision? and then working backwards from there to visualize it, and then refining it if it doesn't actually make sense in a visual format, or if it's not relevant anymore, or if data sources aren't updated frequently, which is definitely a thing that can happen. Something that we're using might be a point in time, then maybe that shouldn't get included because we're not able to make longer term decisions on it. So there's a couple of refinement factors like that that I'm thinking about.
Great. Thanks, Eileen. I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions before I do my final announcements here. Eileen, can I ask one more question for you about Denver Public Library? And I think this might be something that's impacting our other Safe Routes communities too. Just if the library has changed their outreach approach towards immigrant communities, especially over the past few months, and what that might look like. I know that there are some communities that we work with who are looking for some strategies.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We haven't changed our outreach efforts to the communities themselves. What we have changed is some of the data that we're collecting from them and storing, because we want to ensure their privacy and security, and we want to ensure that we're able to continue supporting the people who rely on us without putting them at additional risk. So if it is a risk to ask that information or collect it, we're not going to do that. But we are still having specifically our programs for immigrants and refugees. We have a Plaza program that is very popular, and we are continuing advertising that and reaching out to those communities.
Thanks so much. Anything else you all want to add or share or spotlight before you log off for today? First, just thank you so much, both Catherine and Eileen, and sharing two really great examples of strong community engagement strategies from very different communities. And one is very geared towards libraries, and one is a full Safe Routes to School project. But I think that we can really pull out some key takeaways that can be applied to all the work that we're doing. So thank you all just for sharing your expertise, sharing your stories, sharing your success, and inspiring us with some new strategies we can take back to our work. Also, huge thank you to CDOT and Colorado in general for being such great partners and both supporting this work and also just highlighting great work that's happening across the state. I think especially with your example, Catherine, of being able to get funding to actually implement your Safe Routes to School project, that the support from CDOT has been essential to that success. And we really appreciate how you're continuing to grow Safe Routes across your state. I had actually mentioned with Eileen that our next step is going to be to connect Eileen with the Denver Safe Routes to School program and see if we can even add more layers to that map with getting some walking and biking and rolling routes on there too. So more good things to come in Denver as well. As I mentioned, I'll be sharing out the full recording for the webinar, both of the presentations, all of the resource links will be in as well, along with contact information for Catherine and Eileen. So if you all have questions or need to follow up with anything or need additional resources, please do let us know. We're happy to get you what you need, and just appreciate you all joining us today and talking about one of my favorite topics, which is community engagement. So with that, we will wrap up. Thank you so much. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, CDOT. Keep an eye out for a follow-up email from me and the link to the recording, and please do share that with your networks as well. I'll also share out a link for you to connect with our Safe Routes to School Google group. We have a great group where you can come and either actually chat with other Safe Routes practitioners. And then we also have our Safe Routes to School e-newsletter. You're welcome to sign up for that as well. And then, of course, joining us at the Safe Routes to School Summit later this month. So lots of follow-up coming from me. It'll all be in a nice little email for you over the next few days. And with that, we will wrap up. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great one. Thank you.
Um,
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.